Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. Do you feel like you're less than successful? Do you really not know how or what you're doing wrong or what you could do better? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. What you could do better to be successful in your career and in your life and just generally living? Well, we have a gentleman with us today who that's what he does, is he works with people and mentors them predominantly in business, but I imagine that bleeds over into other things as well. And if you go to his website, which is TalentC.ca, you can find out more about him and what he does. His name is Doug Lawrence, and I want to welcome to the program. Young man, it's great to see you again.
You got it. You're killing me with kindness. You're just absolutely killing me with kindness. And it's good to see you again as well.
Well, I was thinking about in reviewing your website and thinking about what we were going to talk about today. And I was just thinking to myself, I really don't know what being a good mentor means. And what is it that a individual can gain from the expertise that a mentor has to offer? Can you enlighten us on that?
So the best way for me to describe what mentoring is all about is, and I'll use kind of the quasi textbook definition, but it's a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee are going to learn and grow together on a personal and professional basis. And so I like to always break that down so that people understand that mentoring can also play a huge part in your personal, like self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, self-doubt, all the selves, as I call them. And that's mentoring can play a significant part in kind of getting your train back on the tracks and get moving forward with not only your personal development, but also your professional as well.
It seems to me like everybody that's in business, an entrepreneur, or in their personal life, they're already trying to do everything in their mind that they can think of to be successful in their personal life and professional life. And so it's almost like when you seek out a mentor, you're seeking out somebody who can provide you with a different perspective on your life and what's happening within that. Is that kind of what you help people understand? Give them maybe some ideas that they had never thought of before?
Well, partially, but what I do is I frame all of what you've just said in the context of a question, because I don't want to be the one that ends up telling you what you should do. I want to ask you questions to help you discover what you should do, and therefore you would be accountable for the outcomes of that journey.
I get it. So I can't blame you.
No.
If you're telling me to do something and I don't do it and it doesn't work, or I do it and it doesn't work, it has to be up to, well, don't you have to believe in yourself enough that if you're going to accept the advice of a mentor and go down that road and to learn something new about yourself, you have to have the confidence and able to act on it, don't you?
You would think so, but I know a lot of people have a huge issue with accountability, and I've been there. I've had a mentee, somebody that I was mentoring, and we were going through the whole job coaching exercise and so on, and I had left it at a place in the conversation where, here are some things for you to think about. And they would counter and say, well, which one should I do? And I'd say, you need to take this home and figure out what it is, what's going to provide the best possible solution for you. And I'm not going to tell you. And somewhere's in there, the message got all skewed up. And the next thing I know is the next day or 2 days later, I'm being quizzed about how come you told me to do this and I didn't get the job. And it was like, whoa, just a minute. We had a conversation, we had a plan, you had a plan that you had to follow through on. So let's have a conversation about what we didn't do correctly and go through it that way. That it's so easy. I had that conversation here just recently. It's so easy to fall into that trap of, well, I don't want to be accountable, so I'm just going to shuffle all that off on somebody else to have to be responsible for. And it doesn't work that way.
You have to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't want to do that because if we're, it's kind of an insidious thing, isn't it? When we're accountable to ourselves, then we have no one to blame but ourselves.
So true. So true.
So it's much easier for me to say, that Doug, I tell you, I hired him and he told me to do this and this and this, and it didn't work. So it must have been Doug's fault. That really is the easy way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. No, you wouldn't be. How many people actually go down that path and they're looking for who can I throw under the bus?
Because anybody other than themselves.
That's true. Or the bus driver. Yeah.
I've been both. But it's interesting that why is it that you think that people are that way and they don't want to take responsibility for themselves or what happens because of how they decide to do things?
I think that we're afraid to fail. And fail is FAIL, first attempt in learning. So, it's like when you talk about mental health and, needing to get help and the stigmatism that's attached with that, the same sort of stigmatism is attached with the business world where we hate to fail. And my philosophy is that failing is how I learn. And once I've failed a couple times, I don't make the same mistake twice.
Because you've already learned that lesson.
Exactly.
And sometimes that lesson can be difficult. And it might go against your, dare I say it, ego. Does ego get involved in any of this?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. Quite a bit. I had a conversation this morning with a prospective mentee, somebody I was going to probably take on mentoring, and you could see that even at a very early age in their career, that ego was playing somewhat of it played a role in how and where they were going to go and how they were going to get there.
Yeah, I know. I've been told more than once that I'm not a very good employee because I don't listen as well. I tend to do what I think is right, and I don't necessarily listen to what the mentor or the person that is trying to get me to look at it in a different way is thinking about. How do you how do you help someone like me that tends to be not listen to what he's being told?
I would sit down and have the conversation if I was if I was mentoring you, I would sit down and have a conversation, and it would basically be something along the lines of, so we've got a task that we need to perform and we need to do it well. So what are some of the things that we can do in order to ensure that we're going to complete those things in the manner that is expected? And we would have a conversation around that part. The thing is that your reluctance to hear is coming from a place where you don't feel accountable. Once again, the accountable word, you don't feel accountable for the outcomes. And we need to collectively, collaboratively work our way towards that, where we together we feel, or you know, we feel that if we follow through with this in a collaborative sense, and by that I mean instead of saying you need to do this, it's we need to do this. So I make it more collaborative, and I'm not, because a lot of employees will take the combative approach to dealing with something versus the collaborative approach, simply because they can shift the attention away from themselves and shift it onto something else.
It's very interesting because I got a story to tell you of a
Good.
personal nature that I would love to have gotten your advice at the time. I was a general manager of a restaurant. There were 6 restaurants in the area, and it was a Mexican restaurant. And so I did certain things in my restaurant that were then taken up by the other restaurants because they were proving to be successful. I had a free appetizer thing that we were doing in the bar, which raised sales to a great degree. And I had different salsas, and I gave away free bean dip with ever anybody sat down. And the district manager thought it was great. We put some dartboards and some music in the lounge, and that raised sales as well. And so everything was going in my mind just swimmingly. The first time in several years, the restaurant was in the black. The turnover had gone down. Employees were making more money. I was able to pay the cooks a little bit more money. Everybody seemed to be going well. And then my district manager left, and he was replaced by another guy who came from another place. And he said, first thing that's got to go is the free happy hour stuff. And we want to charge people for happy hour stuff. We want to charge people for bean dip and stuff. So I was resistant to change because I had seen what I had built, and the the um, the lounge was doing 4 times the business that it had been doing before. As a matter of fact, there were other restaurants that were sending people into the lounge to see what our happy hour buffet was like so that they could take it back to their place and try and duplicate it and stuff. So I knew from my mind, and perhaps it was ego, but I knew from my mind that it was successful. And he said he looked at the full lounge. He looked at all the people that were waiting for dinner and stuff, and he said, "This is great. We need to profitize this." And I said, "You can't, because this is what I built it on." And he said, "I think you're wrong. So this is what we're going to do." And so he did that, and business plummeted. And so then it became my fault because I didn't support the changes enough. How could I have made him see my way or support him better so that he would have thought that I did a better job?
I would probably would have said something along the lines that I hear what you're saying. It may have merit. Can we run a pilot to see what if it makes logical sense for us to move in that direction, and and do it that way, so that it's not him coming in and waving the axe to sort of chop everything off, but it's to create, to be able to create that environment where we're going to work together to sort of make sure that we are making the right business decision.
That would have been a very I was so invested in what I had done that I wasn't even willing to look at that. So it wasn't like we sat and he came on and was kind of a forceful kind of guy because he was a district manager. And so he thought what his way was the best way. And rather than me sit down with him and negotiate with them and explain, and perhaps show him numbers from months before I started the program and then now, and stuff might have helped. But how do you get when you got somebody who's so vested in what they're doing that they can't see a better way to get around an obstacle that's presented to them?
Yeah, it's a matter now when you talk about the vested part is you're talking about yourself being vested and quite possibly not being open to suggestions on different ways to it's the old story, if it's not broken, let's not fix it.
Yeah, well, and the thing was is that I was responsible, and they took it all through all six restaurants. All six restaurants started to do what I was doing in my restaurant because it was sales were going up and it was
Yeah.
considered successful. And so, um, but I didn't. So when he came in with this new program he wanted to do, I was very, very resistant. As a matter of fact, I almost got fired over it, because I didn't want the change, because this is something that I was vested in, that I had built, and I felt like it was successful. And so it became a really big problem for me. As a matter of fact, I ended up leaving the company because of it.
Well, and what you've touched on is a great place for a mentor to play a role, and not so much mentoring you, the employee, but mentoring the manager.
Yes.
That's where the I think the bigger return on investment would come is from mentoring the manager. So giving him the tools he needs in order to manage those situations, because what he's walking into or what he's created is a crucial conversation, and he needs to know when to back out, and he needs to know when to change direction, and he needs to know how to go about changing direction, and that can be done through a crucial conversation. But to do what he did, it's my way or the highway type of an approach. Yeah, you lose so much, and you'd mentioned, turnover, but you go from having a positive trusted work environment to one that's not even anywhere as close to that, and it's continually uh, progressing to get worse each working day. There needs to be, he needs to, I'm going to suggest that the best possible thing that could happen would be for a mentor to have been assigned to him and walk beside him to help him work his way through that, so he doesn't end up losing face with the employees.
Well, and it cost the bartenders a great deal of money. It cost the servers a great deal of money because business was in a decline now.
Yep.
And it's because he came new to the company and he was trained in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where the home of the company is. And so they had a different business model that they'd used for many, many years. And it was successful because they had enough business to support it. But when he came up to our place in the Pacific Northwest, it was a completely different environment. And you couldn't change everything on a dime and expect the same kind of success. Had he done it gradually and limitedly, in a testing kind of way, that would have, and he made some good changes as well, but that really would have made us as his staff much more amenable to making these changes, because we could then believe in it. But then he accused me of not believing in it, and the fact of the matter is, he's right. I didn't believe in a thing. It's like, you're an idiot. Why are you here?
Yeah,
Was kind of my attitude.
yeah. Who sent this guy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, the company was sold. They're now in the Northwest. They're called Azteca, and all six restaurants were sold like 6 months after he got there. So it was one of those things. But see, mentoring in his mind. But we need to take a quick break because this is too good. But when we come back, I gotta ask you, because he was completely unwilling to look at another point of view other than his own, which ultimately cost him his job. He ended up being a district sales manager for like uh, uh, Red Robin or something. No,
Okay.
Wendy's or something like that. But I would like for you to help those that may be in that position, that how a mentor can help them see their way through to, because he was in a minefield, because all the managers were in an uproar because they were losing business, and he was trying to defend it, and he was defending the undefensible as far
Yeah.
as we were concerned. So I'd love for you to kind of play his mentor and give him some advice, but we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Doug Lawrence is our guest. Go to talentc.ca, find out all about him, and if you're that guy who doesn't want to change and doesn't want to see another way, he can help you. We'll be right back.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. That's me, by the way. And we have a wonderful guest. His name is Doug Lawrence. I love talking about business stuff because it is so critical to all of our lives in many, many ways, including our personal life. Because if you're having a really crappy time at work, you're liable to go home and kick the dog and or the wife or both, and then your life cannot be as good as it could be. And so we're talking about being a mentor and finding somebody who can give you some ideas that you may not have thought of, that could help you go through the minefields of what you're trying to work through so that you can be successful in business, which then bleeds over to your personal life and really affects every part of you. So Doug is here. And how would you handle that if the guy came in and he was loaded for bear and was all excited about doing this, and he was not willing to listen to anybody else? How would you mentor a guy like that?
I always tackle it from the aspect of, so you want to make these changes. Are there any changes that sort of to try and get the general idea or the gist of where his head is, and get him to start to understand, by making a decision such as he is, who all does it impact? And so getting him to see that, there's impact on loss of revenue on the part of a large percentage of the employees. There can be employees leaving, and if employees leave, so do the clients. The guests, or the people that frequent the restaurant, are not going to come anymore, because guess what? It's no longer a positive place to go, largely due to the fact that the new boss has ticked off everybody, and so that spills over into the employees having a negative attitude, and you end up with disengaged employees, which is a whole nother conversation. So I would be tackling it from there and sort of saying, if you are dead set against implementing this the way you are talking, I'm going to recommend to you that you do it in a smaller version and do a pilot type approach to sort of see what's the impact going to be if we go and implement this full scale, and go from there, and start to try to appeal to common sense if there is anything left there. But to be able to appeal to common sense, to be able to say, let's things are working well. It's kind of like what I said before: if it's not broken, don't fix it. So that would be the approach that I would take.
You know, it's interesting. He went even so far. We in the restaurant that I ran, which was miles away from the other ones, and there were certain things that were done over time that the clients liked. We had, as an example, we had a different type of salsa that none of the other restaurants used because it wasn't corporately mandated. But they had, over time, long before I got there, they had developed this recipe, and there was people who liked that particular salsa, and so that's why they came there. And he said he saw the salsa, and I had 3 of them up there. I was only supposed to have 2, and he said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, this is a local deal. It was here before I got here, and these people love it." And he said, "Well, pull it. You're not allowed to have that here anymore because it's not like the other restaurants." He wanted them all to be like, but this was a neighborhood place. So the people that went to my restaurant didn't go to the other restaurants because they were miles away. And but in his mind, he wanted it to be like a McDonald's, where a Big Mac is a Big Mac is a Big Mac. He wanted it to be that way as a corporate restaurant. But he didn't take into account that he had to marry the corporate restaurant with the neighborhood restaurant and to do it differently. So I ended up taking that salsa, putting it into a refrigerator in the back, so when these people would come in, they could still get their salsa. But I was being a disingenuous employee by trying to take care of my guests, and that's how he saw it.
Yeah,
It was too
kind
bad.
of, sort of like a rebel, kind of.
I was not adhering to the company line because I had to face these people that would walk into my restaurant every day, and I'd get called over to their table and say, "Where's the salsa?" What was I supposed to say? "I'm sorry, the district sales manager says that we're not allowed to serve that anymore. So I guess you're just gonna have to take your damn business elsewhere." If somebody, and so that made absolutely no sense to me.
No, and the I the thing that stands out the most for me is the fact that that manager didn't comprehend or understand when you make a decision, it impacts a number of different people, and he didn't get that.
Yeah, it's the unintended consequences thing.
Because I think of all those paying customers that were coming there before he showed up that are now going someplace else. And if they're like anyone else, I know if you go to a place for a while and they change things up and they shouldn't have to consult, but if they want to provide good quality customer service, it doesn't hurt to say, we're thinking of phasing out this sauce. What do you think about that? And if they get quite a bit of pushback, maybe it's not a sound business decision, and you have to be open and receptive enough to be able to say, okay, I'm going to, whatever the end result is, I'm going to live with that. Whether it be the salsa stays or it goes, I'm going to live with that decision because I've done my due diligence.
Yeah, and I would have thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a mentor, would you coach somebody to, when they walk into a new place, because I've done this several times, walk into a new restaurant, I'm now the boss. The old boss is gone. They got fired or they got transferred. And so I'm now the boss. I always found that it was better for me to shut up and to observe for a period of time and to ask questions. Why do you guys do this? Why do you do this that way? And before I make a decision as far as what I'm going to do going forward, is that a sound way to enter a new facility or a business or anything where you're going to be in charge, is to shut up and listen for a while?
And be there to support the staff through the transition. Yes, that's most definitely I've worked with lots of managers that were that way, that when they came in, they zipped the lip and they kind of sat back and observed. And the other part is start to open up a dialogue with all your employees. So start with one-on-ones and, you know, get a better understanding and get their buy-in on you know, that they have a part to play in shaping where the restaurant's going to go next.
I couldn't agree with you more. I had a philosophy that was called divide and conquer. And what that meant was, I walked into a particular restaurant and the manager, the staff loved him, but he got fired because, you know, the staff didn't have to do anything. That's why they loved him. And so my object was to pick some key employees that I knew were well spoken amongst the staff and to get them on my side and then have it grow from there. So I was going to divide, you know, rather than having everybody against you when you're making all these decisions, you're going to get people on your side who are then going to support you with the staff. Is that a good way to operate?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's you know, and it's trying to get to a place where they think that what you're doing is their idea.
That's even smarter.
And,
Go ahead.
sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you can do that so that you can plant the idea in their head that this is really their idea, and then they have buy-in, because isn't buy-in a major component of getting your staff working for you, is getting them to buy in on what your vision is?
It is, most definitely. And that's why mentoring is such a powerful tool to have, because a good mentor is going to, through asking a series of questions and getting the employee involved and going through and critically thinking their way through, you are slowly moving that employee closer and closer to providing their buy-in for what it is that you need and want to do as far as change is concerned.
What kind of questions do you ask a new manager that's walking into a facility, that what steps they need to take or what steps would be good for them when walking into a new facility and seeing a bunch of faces who you have no idea who's good and who's not, and you're just looking at all these people you don't know? What would be some steps that you would recommend a new manager take?
What I would suggest you do is sit back, listen, and hear what's going on for a period of time. And then from there, I would develop my strategy as to what I'm going to do going forward. So, and by that, it could mean what are some of the things that we may need to change? What are some of the things we may need to, you know, enhance, and so on like that. And then where I would go is I would start with probably a larger group session, a group discussion about, you know, I'm brand new. I need you as part of my team, and kind of go through and start to build that team vision. And then what I would do is, after that, I would do one-on-ones, and I would get to learn from employees on an individual basis what works well, what doesn't work well, and what do we need to change going forward. So kind of let's collectively reflect upon what it is that we see and hear that's taking place, and then go about making those changes. And the more times that you can engage your employees in discussion and conversation, it's like one of the things that I've done and what I teach sometimes is the aspect of, with say a strategic business plan, is that you need to walk every employee through that strategic plan and get them to see themselves and how they're going to contribute to achieving the results that are needed for that succession or that strategic plan to be effective.
And so you get their buy-in on what your vision is and how you're going to work with them not because of them, to implement it. Is that fair?
That's fair. And the other part is for them to see themselves in that strategic plan. They need to see how, well, why should I be concerned about that? Well, it would be nice if you were able to see yourself in that plan, is knowing that the task or the job that you perform contributes to the success of the organization here, here, and here, and lay it out that way.
I agree with you, 5,000%, because I always felt it was incumbent upon me as the manager who's in charge. I had a staff of 75, and it was incumbent upon me to make sure that each and every one of them knew they had an integral piece of the puzzle of how we were going to be successful. And our measure of success was not going to be the number of butts in the seats necessarily. It was going to be how many tips that they're going to get. How much more can we generate so that there's a bigger pool of money to pay the staff? That seemed to work. People tended to say, he's in it for me, not just for the business. And if I do my job well, then everybody's going to succeed. That's kind of the way that I tried to present it. Was that good?
Yeah, that was, yeah. Yes, it was good.
I'm so glad that worked, because I just made that up as I went. But people want to be vested, and people want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
I went through that exercise. So my boss came in and spinned the strategic business plan piece, and then left the room. And then I came in and I said, so now what we're going to do for the next half hour, 45 minutes is we're going to talk about how can I contribute to the success of that strategic plan, and what do I need to do? And so we went through some exercises and stuff, as far as one of the things is enhance customer service. Well, how can I do that with the job that I'm tasked with having to do? And I said, so take a step outside of the workplace, and where else in your life do you provide, customer service at a higher level than where you are working today? So are there some things, some tasks that you've done, some community involvement that required you to provide customer service, and did you do so, and how did it make you feel? And we went through that, and all of a sudden they went click, the light bulb came on, and it was, now I understand. Except it kind of backfired, because we had one employee, he said, as a result of the conversation that we had here and me doing that self-analysis, I'm in the wrong company. And he left.
Because he was in the wrong company.
Yep. Well, and good that you can recognize that.
Exactly. I also told him in the same meeting that I had, because the dishwashers were there and stuff, and I said, do you know who the most important employee in this building is? And they said, well, you, sir, of course, you're the GM. I said, no, it's the dishwasher. He touches every plate that the customer sees. If he does a good job, then we have clean dishes. If he doesn't, then we're in big trouble. Yeah. And even though they get paid the least, I was able to give them a little bit more than they normally would have gotten, because they did it. They were expected to, and this isn't a wishful thing. They were expected to do a good job.
Yeah.
But they were then rewarded for doing that good job.
Yeah.
And that's why don't more businesses operate that way?
Same thing. Why don't businesses have mentoring as a part of their strategic plan?
I think it should be a requirement, quite frankly.
I know of a couple organizations that they did just that. That one of the strategic objectives was to research and implement a mentoring program for the organization, and they did that with great success.
Well, it drives me crazy because I work for a couple of large food service operations. And you know who the director of sales was? The previous top sales guy.
Oh,
Now, you and I both know that being a top sales guy and being a top manager are completely different skill sets.
yeah.
That's why they need a mentor, because a sales guy is going to look at things differently than a manager is going to look at them. He's going to look at them like, this is easy. Everybody should be able to do these top sales, and if you can't do it, then you need to go, rather than saying, how can I help this individual be the best they can be?
Well, and big difference between being the fast talking salesperson to being the more focused mentor or manager, that, the more focused and not being that fast talker. So that, because I've worked for people or with people that have been that way, and you don't want to have a conversation with them because it's like they're trying to do an auction sale and sell to sell whatever they possibly can as quickly as they possibly can. And that's not what you want in leadership positions in your organization. I did some stuff with a company here where they would provide mentorship to their new managers to help them get off the ground.
Why no more companies do that? Because that's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah. No.
And from the look on your face, it sounds like it's frustrating to you because with your background, you've been doing this for 40 years, and you're an author and you're a speaker, and you've got all this stuff going on that you can help somebody. But a lot of companies they look at the short-term dollars and cents versus the long-term dollars and cents, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that, as sad as it may be, that's how things are viewed, and to reassure businesses, I have what I call my value proposition, and that's bring me into your company and for a fixed period of time, and say five days. And at the end of that fifth day, or even before that, if either you feel or I feel that you're not getting the value that you should be getting, then we need to revisit this agreement because it's not working. And what that can mean is that I can work with you to help you find the right person that's going to hopefully get you the results that you want. But my commitment to you is to make sure that you're getting value no matter who it is that does the work for you.
It's interesting. I've looked at a lot of P&Ls in my career, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you would know better than I, but I have never seen a P&L that has a line on it, because P&Ls have got all kinds of lines, food costs, board costs, liquor costs, labor costs, cost of goods, different stuff. I've never seen one that reflects the cost of turnover.
Yeah.
Would you kind of go over how expensive turnover can be? And nobody looks at it's not like you say, okay, when we lose somebody, it goes on the P&L, and that person represents a loss of $1,000 per week or per month or whatever the target is. Explain to us how devastating turnover can be to a company.
Typically, if you look at the research, the research says that the loss of an employee is the equivalent is usually factored at 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary is what it is the cost to the organization.
So if you have got a valued member of your organization that makes a little bit more than what other people make because he does a good job, and then he leaves say he makes $80,000 a year. In order to replace him is going to cost 160 grand.
Yeah.
Why don't they recognize that? It kills me. Drives you crazy.
Well, the bottom line, I think, is that it doesn't matter. You know, the employee left, and so we'll put the money out to get a replacement. And a lot of the stuff, and we talked about this last time, a lot of the things that they don't take is, what about the knowledge management piece? So what corporate knowledge is going to walk out the door when that employee leaves? You can't get that back unless you've gone through a knowledge management strategy and put stuff in place to capture all that. But there's that part, and then there's the impact on the customer, on the client, because they've become familiar, they've become so used to working with this employee, and now they're gone. The chances are, and I've seen this in one of the industries that I did some work with, that when we went through a termination process, because it had to take place, and as a result of that, a couple customers picked up their business and walked down the street to the competition and went and started to get their service and everything else that they needed from that particular company.
I know this to be true. I haven't done the research, but in my heart, I know it's true. And that is this. As an example, if you are a diesel mechanic and you're a field mechanic and you've got a bunch of customers that you go to and a bunch of companies that you work with, and you do their PMs, which is their primary maintenance and things like that, and you form a relationship with that company. When that employee leaves your company, that's the prime time for that company that he has been servicing so well to start looking at how much you've been charging him, looking at the quality of the service that you now can provide or not provide. And so that's the time that's a very dangerous time for a company, because that's when they're going to start looking to see what else is out there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I do, definitely. And it's got a huge, all that we've been talking about has a huge impact on the culture in the organization as well. And I know that to be true because I did some work with an organization where I did a culture assessment, and long story short, we ended up with one employee having to leave, and it took a while for them to rebuild their culture as a result of that.
I'm a firm believer that if you lose a quality key employee, it takes five hires to replace that person with equal quality, because people are different, and it takes a long time and several years. So your number of twice the salary is really well founded, and they would be much better off if they had a better culture and could keep people happier. When we come back, I want you to tell us, in your opinion, what are the 4 or 5 most prevalent reasons that people leave their company and go someplace else? I think you probably have this memorized, but by the way, we're talking with Doug Lawrence. Go to his website, which is talentc.ca. Find out all about him. I would highly recommend that if he's available, and he's not all that available, but when he is, that you contact him and have him come look at your company, because we can all do better. And it's only money. It's only money that you're not going to have at your bottom line, and it may cost you your job if you're not careful. We'll be right back.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Donald Doug Lawrence is our guest, and he is a mentor. He's a speaker, and I would love for you to come speak to someplace that I can see and hear you. What do you talk about when you're doing your speaking?
Combination of things, mostly stuff that's related to mentoring, but my three main topics are mentoring, mental health, and grief. And then I weave leadership and all of those things. I weave that into the conversation or into the speaking opportunity as best I can.
Well, I think that you would be a wonderful speaker to have to talk about any of those things. But specifically, can you give me like the top 5 or 6 reasons why people leave a company?
Well, I can give you the first one unequivocally, without a doubt, is the leadership in the company, whether it's the CEO or whether it's 2 or 3 of the leaders, because that you know aren't supportive of the employees and aren't willing to kind of bend a little bit to give them the guidance that they need to be able to move forward and stuff like that. So would definitely be that. A culture that is predominantly full of disengaged employees would be number 2, because of the fact that one disengaged employee can poison. It's kind of like the bad apple in the barrel, can poison the rest of the employees. Number 3 would be, let me think here for a minute. Number 3 would be work-life balance, is trying to find that, and that conceivably could move up to number 2, but is that number 3 or 4 where I can't count these days, but that's okay.
Number 4.
Number 4, an organization that does not have a support structure in place for mental health, and so is in a roundabout way supporting the stigmatism of it's not okay to reach out and ask for help, when in fact it is okay to reach out and ask for help. And number 5 would be a culture that is not employee focused.
In none of those 5 was rate of pay.
Yeah.
That's like down at 6 or 7 or 8 or
Yeah.
somewhere in there. And it's all tied to quality of life. And the other thing that I want to ask you, if you have been getting this, it's been happening here because we had the great resignation not too long ago. And what that was people after the pandemic decided, you know what, this job ain't so great after all. I don't want to work 60 hours a week anymore. I want to have a life balance. Are you finding that's kind of a universal theme that's going around now?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think, we created a monster with COVID. People were, sort of the isolation part. Well, I got nothing better to do. I may as well work, and, working from home and all that sort of stuff. And we've created a monster because now it's become an expectation on the part of the management people that this is how, we'll let you work from home, but here are the things we need you to get done.
What's interesting about that is, and I don't know, I'm sure you know this, there are computer programs that will monitor your computer usage at home when you're working out of your home. And so they can actually monitor how much you're working or not working and stuff. So the big brother is always hanging around there somewhere.
So true. So true.
And the kids today, my gosh, a lot of them are looking for a better balance. They're looking for upward mobility without having to work 60, 70 hours a week. I mean, in my day, way back when, um, I knew people that worked 60 hours a week regardless. They had a crappy home life. They might have been married 2 or 3 times. They got a dog and stuff like that. So, um, times are changing. Times are changing. And do you find that ownership and CEOs are changing with it, or are they fighting?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Oh yeah. Do you find that CEOs and companies now are are embracing this change of younger people and how they want to have life balance and work balance, and or are they fighting that?
There is a degree of CEOs, leaders that are actually fighting that because it's it's not like that when the COVID situation where if you wanted to keep your job, you had to work from home. That was basically it. And for medical reasons, you were told to stay home and all that sort of stuff. Where now the longstanding debate is whether I have to work from home or whether I have to come to the office, because what I'm seeing that's taken place is a lot of people kind of like this working from home sort of thing, because you can do, a number of different things besides work at the same time. So like I love the fact that I work from home because I can stay on top of the laundry in the house and keep it up to date. So, it's little things like that make it more appealing to the younger generation to move forward.
Yep, and they can do anything they want to on a computer. They can use Zoom. They can do. It's amazing how the technology has moved forward. As an example, you're in Canada and I'm on the West Coast, and we're having a great conversation. So,
Yeah.
but by the way, again, we're talking with Doug Lawrence. Go to his website, TalentC.ca, and find out all about him. He's a mentor. He's an author. He's a speaker, and he's worth your time to investigate, because the hidden cost of business is simply amazing. And I think they know it's there. They just don't know how to measure it and stuff. So, but loss of productivity is there, and they know how to measure that and stuff. So, in any event, Doug, we've got to go, but I just want to give you the opportunity to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know.
If at the end of this conversation that we've had today, you still have questions in your mind about should I or shouldn't I, if I do, what's it going to take, send me an email, doug.lawrence@talentc.ca, and we can have a conversation so that you can make an informed decision which direction you'd like to go.
And your website again, I'm sorry, your email again is?
Doug.Lawrence, so Doug.Lawrence, LAWRENCE, @TalentC, so the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca.
It's a pleasure having you here. I just love talking about business because it is really, it affects every aspect of our lives. And until we don't have to do it anymore. And even so, I'm got a new career. So what do you do? So
There you go.
Thank you so much for being here. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Yeah, thank you
And
very much.
again, go to his website, which is talentc.ca. And again, thank you very much. And yeah, hire a mentor. Goodness gracious, you have no idea how much it's costing you until it doesn't cost you that anymore. And then you can say, hey, how did all this money get to the bottom line? Thank you, Doug. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other